I'm Simon from Perch. We're a small design business now based in Harold's Cross. I guess we both, myself and Phil, studied together in NCAD. We graduated in 2003, went our separate ways, and eventually I started Perch in 2008 after a research master's looking at ergonomic school furniture. And then Phil joined us back again in 2012, which kind of marked for us the stopping of an old way of doing design where the client would come to us with a brief and maybe a 4-week window to do a quick design project. The idea is already there, get it out the door. And I kind of never was fond of that way of working because I guess wearing a research hat, as soon as you hand over the project, you feel like only now I'm understanding what we're actually designing. So we put the brakes on and we said, look, we can do much better than this. We can put the pause on and work on a more long-scale research-driven philosophy. So our, I guess, mission statement is, or what we say we do is, we're research-led design for applied human movement. And basically, what that means for us and what we're telling people that it means for Grey Fox is when you start with a focus purely on the human, their psychological, physiological, and biophilic needs as an underpinning, we find that the concept for something new and meaningful designs itself. So we really do a long kind of research phase. We observe people casually, and then we've done laboratory observations as well, where we are looking for social, physiological cues, how people interact, the fluidity of conversation, the fluidity of interactions, and then we're literally sketching around the people to see what products can fall out of that. Sometimes there's something revolutionary comes out, sometimes something very simple, but we think that for Grey Fox, despite when you go to any furniture fair around the world, you come away disillusioned going, the world doesn't need another chair. But I think when you start with the basis of let's just design for humans being human in an urban environment, there really is novelty still to be gained. And that's our promise to Grey Fox. We hope to, and it's been an amazing venture so far. It's probably a little older for us. We're working with Stuart for a number of years. And it's not often a client gives you that level of trust where they say, we want your ideas on paper. As I said, normally, the way we're used to working is there's already an idea coming from sales and marketing. They've developed a kind of a design brief and it's over to the designers now. We're really kind of sculpting out the landscape and saying we think we can make a really important difference in this market. Let's go for it. So Grey Fox for us is all about creating a concept of urbanism. And what that means is as we move density living and working in urban environments, we lose touch with our naturalistic roots and biophilic requirements. We shut off from people as our bodies and minds acclimatise to the built environment. As we move further from the fields, our focus at Grey Fox is to reconnect you through the critical heritages of being human in the 21st century. So our role as we see it as a design practice is to keep one foot in academic circles, and as Michael alluded to earlier, I started my role in Perch really as a researcher with the National College of Art and Design, where I spent 2 years researching ergonomic school furniture from 2006 to 2008. And I emerged with a patented design that we were very fortunate to have commercialized with a Danish company. And it's really strange, it's amazing to tell the story because we were hugely inspired by everything Danish up until the 60s, 70s, 80s, how they carved the market, the really kind of, I guess, posture-based, wellness-based, took huge inspiration from that, and I believe created something that is unique in the marketplace and then managed to sell that back to the Danish market. And it's now #1 selling educational chair in Denmark, and we look forward to trying to bring it into Ireland and the UK as well. As well as that, it started as a PhD in 2009. It's the longest running PhD in the history of, and it will be, it'll never finish. But it exposed us to a lot of really good researchers, and I guess a lot of the NCAD staff would have started around the same time. We ran an FP7 project, a European project, where we wrote and completed it, looking at the future of educational furniture. It was a €1.3 million 4-year project. And then I guess the project I'm going to be talking about later came out of a second FP7 project looking at STEM learning. It was a 3-year project with 13 partners. So we've always had a real passion for taking what would be on library shelves and then moving it into commercial arenas and seeing how it can flourish. For us, it's very important to look at all of the, I guess, interdisciplinary sectors that we always are interested in and affected by: architecture, biology, pedagogy, technology, all of the ologies really. But at the end of the day, it's really important for us to remain as designers in that. So we don't really want to become ergonomists or physiologists. And when I do this type of talk in Denmark, it's PhD Simon Dennehy, an ergonomist, and it's not. We really are a design house. That's what we want to remain as. But we're really heavily influenced by all of the different sectors and all of the different sciences. So I guess for Grey Fox and for pretty much any one of our clients at the moment, we have a heavy passion for designing for education, but I guess the greater field of education and what that means for Irish society and workplaces as well. At the moment, I believe Facebook are employing something like 2,000 PhDs around the world, and Stanford are sending 2,000 PhDs per year out into the marketplace. So it's easy to see that the balance is shifting, and how modern technology companies are almost education facilities. So there's a real crossover between education and office, and we're really interested as well in what happens in the STEM and the STEAM in laboratories and in kind of technology classrooms and workplaces, and then surrounded by that essence and kind of aesthetic of the home, because at the end of the day, if we're going to be completing work we're passionate about, we need to feel cozy. And I think the fact that we can sculpt something, that we can turn it into a home place for ourselves, is really important. Play this. So for Grey Fox, we're very, I suppose, particularly concerned with health-centric futures and what that can mean. That's our commitment to developing ergonomic solutions. We're always learning, so from cradle to grave, if we're participating in something we're passionate about, it's easy to consider that we're learning on a continuous basis. Sorry, I have to do this. And the question is, why bother? It's because you've probably all heard in the news, sedentary lifestyle is killing us. It's linked to almost all of the lifestyle diseases, from depression, obesity, cardiovascular disease, deep vein thrombosis, the list goes on and on. The end of the story is, if you sit down for long periods of time all day, sometimes up to 18 or 20 hours a day, you'll die younger. And there's been many studies to kind of highlight that and prove it. So lack of physical activity is key in this. So our furniture is geared towards more naturalistic human movement. We want to provide workers and learners with access to movement. We can't make people move all the time, but furniture can very much prevent people from moving. So it's all for us about, have we provided access to movement? Are people able to sculpt their own workplace and move more naturalistically? Mark is here tonight from the UK, and we met on the European standards for school furniture. There's a real kind of niche geek society out there that give their time to help to write the standards for educational furniture, and great group of guys. And it's an amazing learning landscape for us as designers. There's not very many designers on it. Mostly it's industry focused, but I guess it's one of those niche areas that if you have contributed to, you probably know more than a lot of the manufacturers out there. So hopefully we can do some good work in that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about ray first, and then float, and then grounded. Hopefully keep it within a half an hour. Hopefully much faster than that. But this is my 2-year-old Fionn when he was in the bathroom, and he could not keep him down off the walls. He's a kinesthetic learner. His older brother Brian is exactly the same. I caught him washing his feet in the bathroom sink, standing on a stool one day. And I guess we rush to try and age them. I mean, the education system now, kids really echo their parents' movements. Like he's in creche from 3 years of age, 4 years of age, school. They follow your schedule, and I guess as they get into school now, they're taught to sit down and stay still from 4 years of age on, and who knows what age they'll graduate from school from now. So it really does help to pay attention to the younger generation rather than just the teenagers. This is what you'll see in marketing jargon. On the left, you'll see the perfect 90-degree posture, but in reality, we all know that we sit and we slouch, and there's a good reason for that. So I'm going to take you through some of the research that we've been involved in and how the Ray Chair has come out of that research and what we can do to hopefully change that. But predominantly, especially in primary school education, we're talking about the angle of interface between the user and their work. So the first angle of interface would be the seat of the chair, which is usually reclined backwards. So you're sitting in a recline from the start. And there's probably a very sympathetic audience in architects today where you have a drawing board that's sloped. And school furniture used to be sloped towards the student. It's no longer done that way, it's flattened. So your angle of interface is -3, 4, 5 degrees on a seat, and then 0 on your table. And for school kids, our optimum visual distance lengthens as we get older. I have to hold the book out here now, but any young child needs to be within about a foot of their work. So they really will sacrifice their whole lower body in order to get close to their reading and writing work. And they're really intent on learning. So you see big guys with height adjustable chairs dropping their chairs to pull their head in close to their work. And basically they've completely lost the use of the lower part of their body. And what we're training kids to do is to accept that pain, and by the time they get to 8, 9, and 10, they're losing their repair mechanism, and all of a sudden we've got 10, 11, and 12-year-olds with back pain, shoulder pain, and neck pain because we're asking them to hunch over their work all the time. The 90-degree posture. Everybody's familiar with the 90-degree posture. We hope that there's an appreciation that it's not the right way to work. We're not built in right angles. We're not built to move at 90 degrees. Every time I put an image like this up, it seems bizarre, but I'm going to show you some postures in a moment that should hopefully frighten you. Even this posture, which is kind of shown on a website to promote good posture, you can see her back and her neck are completely C-slumped. So again, laptops, most people are working on laptops and they're absolutely not doing any good. But when you do have a laptop, at least it's facing you. But think of a school child in primary school. I mean, primary school is all about basic arithmetic, social skills, and hand-eye coordinated task work. So for that, you're going to be reading and writing and learning to coordinate your hand-eye coordination, and your work is flat down on a table. So I used to be a competitive cyclist. Graham Mowbray was a hero of mine. He had the Superman position. That's a really good posture for a cyclist. Not such a good posture if you're a student in a classroom. And we've done a lot of investigative work in classrooms where we sit down for sometimes up to 3 months at the back of a class and observe, talk to students, talk to parents, talk to teachers, and they all know, but nobody's doing anything about it. The reason it's bad is because we have a relatively flexible upper spine and lower spine, and our midsection is relatively static with a rib cage. And as you can see here, the pelvis has lost control. It's rotating backwards. And when the pelvis is rotating backwards, it means we've basically lost the connectivity between our upper and lower body. So really effective and healthy sitting is all about controlling your pelvic rotation. And anybody who sat on horseback or on a saddle seat or a kneel chair or one of those exercise balls, you don't really require a backrest when you're sitting like that. But as soon as you sit down on a reclined, normal 90-degree chair, suddenly you require a backrest. And the reason for that is you have lost control of your pelvis. And when you lose control of your pelvis, your lower lumbar forms a C-curve, your upper neck forms a C-curve, and the head and the skull and the brain, which is a heavy piece of equipment, is quite heavy by comparison, and that's weighing down and pressing down on your internal organs. So you're restricting most of the body movement. As a result of that, you are restricting your organs and blood flow and oxygen to the body, which are vital especially for learning and working. Your lungs are compressed, and your circulatory system, your blood flow is restricted as well. And you especially see it in primary and secondary schools after lunch. People have eaten, they come in, they're trying to digest that food, but they're sitting down statically instead of moving around, and it really kills the whole vibe in the classroom. You have people dozing off, and it's no good for learning in. The other big learning for us was that soft tissue really shouldn't be squashed. And you notice if you stand and you put your elbows on a table and you put your elbows here or your arms here, that soft tissue gets bruised. So you tend to use these tuberosities, your elbow, your wrist, your knees, your heels. And we have these kind of hard bones in our on our backside as well. And that's how we should sit. So if you sit on horseback or a bike saddle, you'll be making contact with these sit bones. So rather than the fleshy part of your backside, you should be sitting on the sit bones, basically. And what we find is that when you have a spine like this and it's curved because you've lost control of your pelvis, you're no longer making contact with the sit bones, you're sitting on the fatty tissue, and a lumbar support at the back will do very little to repair the damage that you're doing. So it's like forcing down an arch. It's going to do nothing to repair that. So there's a big focus in the furniture market at the moment all about lumbar support, correcting it with a lumbar support, and really it's all about pelvic control. And this has been proven over the last few decades. There's been teams of researchers in Scotland and Canada with positional MRI scanners where they looked at people at 135-degree posture like this where they're perching. They look at people sitting down in slouch position, and they look at 90-degree sitting and say absolutely categorically, you're much healthier if you're perching, if you're this type of sitting. If you're sitting on horseback, again, you don't need a backrest. You're neutrally balanced. All the muscles are firing together, so your legs are acting like big pumps, and that pumps blood around your system. And I suppose most of you have seen the types of saddle seats that are on the market as well. If you look at people in weightless environments like diving, you see that there's a natural kind of flow to their body where their legs are slightly bent. It's very unusual that we would hold ourselves exactly square like this. Or you look at somebody free falling, legs are bent, and that means that the lumbar is neutralized. Zero gravity, astronauts in space. Very unusual to see people standing like this. We tend to hunch like this, which allows our lumbar to flatten, and then we can go into lordosis or kyphosis. And readiness in tennis, in sports, sprinting, any kind of sport really, even playing darts, is all about controlling your core muscles and being ready and being balanced, especially in something like tennis. So what is it to perch? It's feet apart, like this. Open thigh, torso angle. So if you can open this angle, so in traditional seats, we tend to close up to 90 degrees, which rotates our pelvis backwards. So if we can keep our feet apart and hunch down like this, we're bearing weight, our legs are pumping, we're in control, we can get up very easily, we can sit down very easily. Legs slightly bent and load-bearing, and a neutral spine that's load-bearing. So another factor in this is it's not okay to work all day in a reclined position where you're almost falling backwards because you're actually not firing your core muscles. So again, what is it to perch? This is where the Ray chair comes in. As I said, we have a patent on a flexible seat that deforms, and hopefully most of you have seen the chair out there. Feet apart, open thigh, torso angle, legs slightly bent, load-bearing, and a neutral spine. So this is the end product that I did for my master's, where we patented the flexible seat, and we're very fortunate that a company called W2W in Denmark took that research on and developed it, and it's now called the Ray chair. We also had a sloping work surface, but I guess we know from the marketplace that people just don't buy sloping work surfaces. So the table we have out there has a 5-degree slope, but you can cancel that 5-degree slope out as well and just have a flat surface. This is what we see on the pressure pads. So when you put a pressure mat onto the seat pan, on the left you can see the Perch chair, and at the back of the chair you can see red points. That's a high pressure area. That's where the sit bones were making contact with the seat. That's what we want to see, and you don't want to see pressure behind the legs because that's on soft tissue. So we want to see an even dissipation of pressure out here, and when we brought the kids in, we saw them pedaling the chair, so they were continuously moving their lower legs. By comparison, you see the chair on the right-hand side, which is indicative of how we all sit on chairs, really, where the pelvis is rotated backwards, and you can see at the back of the chair that they've completely lost control of their pelvis, and then again, there's high pressure build up behind the back of the knee. So that child, you can be guaranteed, is sitting in a big C slump all day long. I'm going to very quickly run through some of the images we found when we went into schools, and it really is quite scary. So again, on the left, marketing will tell you sit at 90 degrees, but in reality, you see the child slouched over, she's sitting at the edge of a chair like a knife edge, and then he's tucked in as well, and they'll hold that position for hours on end. We were very fortunate. Kiva is a PhD in NCAD studying this with us. We had Donal and Phil, and we went into several schools for months on end to find this type of sitting and working. I mean, if you sit at the back of the class, you basically see headless children because their heads are completely slouched down It's all about eye coordination, hand-eye coordination, and moving your head close to your work. And that's basically the same for adults as well. That's why laptops that are down low on a table, not really that good for you. And they'll hold these positions for hours on end. He's sitting at the edge of a chair, almost fell off several times. So something major is wrong. And now 10, 11, 12-year-olds are complaining about. I mean, most of you probably have had neck pain, lower back pain, and probably shoulder pain. And it's because of this slouch position. And they're basically not moving the lower part of their body. We did a lot of research with Cork's Medic Lab, where we did a gait analysis, pressure pad sensing. This is how students looked when we were mapping them in 3D, with the pressure pads sitting on regular furniture, and then sitting on the Perch furniture. You can see the chalk and cheese effect. They're sitting much higher in Perch. We want you to sit much higher. Usually the way chairs are dictated is the heights of a chair are affected by the average height to the back of your knee. And in schools, unfortunately, we have the situation where we will not afford you height adjustable furniture. So most of the children will be sitting on furniture that's not suited to them. That's not the case on the Perch chair, because you're not depending on a fixed surface. It's a moving surface. So you can sit much higher, you can sit much lower, and still be sitting above the regular height. So in 2012, we launched the Ray chair at the Stockholm Furniture Fair. We now have the Ray at Work chair, which is particularly nice in the offices, we think, and for collaborative zones, for project tables. It really does fit well, and I hope you get a chance to sit in it. It's at the grounded table outside. I think it can make a big difference. They're selling approximately 23,000 of them across Scandinavia at the moment, and the challenge is, can we get into Irish businesses, but also can we affect the Irish and the UK education system, which really are a race to the bottom when it comes to buying furniture. So there's a wide collection. So I'm going to talk about Float and what the project, this was the starting project where we met with Stuart and Michael to talk about what could possibly be done in the third space for offices. We were really interested in the idea of using the Fibonacci sequence, so naturally occurring numbers in nature, the golden ratio and Fibonacci have always been a big inspiration to us. But particularly for group sizes, we were interested in the number 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and 21. Specifically not the number 4, because when you design for 4 people, you tend to end up with rectangular forms and square armchairs. And we know that if you're talking to somebody and you face them directly on, it can be very abrupt, and it's like, get out of my face. Classically, if you look outside Irish churches or at football games, you see clustering of people as they stand and talk to one another, and we tend to hold ourselves at these funny angles, like we'll stand maybe 60 degrees talking to each other, and we're very expressive when furniture isn't in the way. When we're standing, we'll shift our body, we'll use our arms to convey message and sentiment. And what we find is that high back couches and chairs and furniture in general can stint a lot of that. So we were really focused on how do we embellish that and encourage more interaction between people. We're also interested in cave, campfire, and watering hole as pillars for, different types of work zones. And then breaking down the numbers. It's really interesting to design for 1 to 5 for collaborative projects. Beyond that, you almost need 2 groups of people. 5 to 13, again, a very interesting group of people. And we think there's lots of products we can design for Grey Fox that are looking particularly at humans in that space. And then again, in a room like this, what can we do in groups of 13 to 24 or 34? So just a quick analysis that we did some time back where you see 2 people talking. I think it's really interesting to look at the concentricity, the circle space that people inhabit when they're discussing one another. A third person comes into a conversation and the group size can grow ever so slightly organically. A 4th person, a 5th person, and then a 6th person. What you normally find is that 2 groups of people spawn out. You have 2 different lines of conversation, either a 4 and a 2 or a 3 and a 3. So we're really fascinated with, I guess, the shape that people form when they're naturally interacting with each other. And then that posed the question to us, well, how do people actually work in away from the desk activities? Most offices now are promoting get out. And most offices look like coffee shops now. So, but what we found is that furniture very rarely fits their needs. And these are actually sketches from interns we had at the time. They took photographs and they made sketches. And it was really interesting to see the character and the intensities that they brought back just from their sketches alone. So it's still something that inspires us. And the big finding is that, well, if you're sitting on a bench seat with two people and you have a laptop, it's very difficult to actually share that body of work and to collaborate together. And as I said, in coffee shops where you have high or low tables, it's very rare that you'll find something the right height for collaborating and working at. So our building block before we ever put pen to paper was, I guess, we know that people bring stuff to a meeting, like an iPad, a cup of coffee, a pencil, piece of paper, a laptop. They need a surface for those items. They need a moment of privacy, the ability to close in a space as well, a way of carrying these items. Specifically, if you look at anybody sitting or standing, we generally do stuff with our arms. We cross our arms, we put our hands in our pocket. They're kind of awkward appendages. So, especially when you're communicating with somebody, armrests and chairs are very important for expressive communication. We wanted the furniture to be very modular, and we wanted to keep it off the floor so it was light and it was movable. And here's some early sketch work. It's going back to probably 2015, I'd say. So the next is a quick animation that just shows our thought process from how we looked at a person, the space they inhabit, and how we converted that into a chair. So it's going to run pretty quickly, but hopefully it'll make sense. So it's easy to see where you could stop and make a tub chair out of it. Our question was, well, can we make it turn around in full 360? And up from 1 to 5 people, how can that modular form continue growing out? So it seems to be the shape that keeps on giving. That hexagon really enables you to grow, 20, I think we put 24, 25 of them together, and you get these natural clusters of people. And then the table adds another element to that as well. So the final thing I'm going to talk about is Grounded, which is the table system out there. And it's a very small twist on a classic project table. But we think it makes enough of a difference that I think it deserves its place. And I guess the tagline for Grounded is it's higher perspectives. And this came out of a research project we did with 13 partners, all about STEM learning. It was a €3 million FP7 project in Europe. And we had some incredible partners like the Copenhagen Institute of Interaction Design, University College London, their Living and Robotics Lab, people from all over Europe. We were particularly interested in, or I guess our task was to design the furniture and environment, and that's really where we started focusing on, well, how can furniture affect environment and how is environment affected by the furniture? But again, we were interested in the crossover between education and task, third space and office task. And then again, classroom, virtual, and studio, and what that meant. And this is work that we kind of steam bent our own wood. We had lots of different prototypes. We built a whole suite of a classroom in 2 pieces of furniture. So we had a dolly system that folded down to give you a project table with a light on top. We had a standing height table with a footplate, and we felt that the footplate allowed you to sit higher with your legs out rather than just sitting with a foot bar, because most project tables or most high chairs have a foot bar, but you really have to struggle to position your feet correctly. When you have a foot bar or a foot plate like that, you're able to treat it like a false ground, so you're able to relax into the work. And then we had 2 whiteboards that rested on the dolly system as well. We did a lot of testing. There was testing in London, Copenhagen, Malmo, Craiovia, Pisa, Barcelona, Dublin, and Linz. There was a lot of partners. We did a lot of trials in third level education, second level education as well. And what we found pretty conclusively was that if you're sitting higher and you feel comfortable sitting higher in groups of 1 to 6 people, that you have far better apprehension and project completion if you're up high and you have the ability to stand or sit at that table, versus sitting down low at regular height furniture. We found that people absolutely do not move, and they have less apprehension, less project completion. So, and as soon as we added the footplate, we found much more natural interactions with that furniture and between people as well. So the key for us was to improve interactions between people to people and people to environment. So this is how it looked in the end. And again, as we brought Grounded to life, this is some of the thought process that we used to guide the product development. So you can see the eye lines of people are drastically different when they're sitting down low and somebody walks into the scene. How do we take that form and develop it as a circle or as a pill shape? So we put a carpet on the footplate, basically to give you traction on this. It's a really nice way to, it drinks up dust and sound as well. We've gone with 2 different surface types, a Phoenix Nanotech surface on the top and a furniture grade linoleum as well, which really is soft and kind of warm to touch. And in the middle of it, we've put a technology area where we have charging ability, and coming down the line as well, we're now developing a system whereby we'll have mobile charging as well. There's also a pill shape, so for up to 10 people can stand around the table and collaborate as well. So the project that Michael alluded to coming down the line, we're calling Simpatico, and the basic need of Simpatico, this is a pre-concept, so it's going to look drastically different. But the main idea is that it's a mobile system of bringing untethered power to both float and the grounded tables. And with that as well, we hope to bring items like coffee, drinks, maybe mobile refrigeration as well to the areas so that you can have a full experience without breaking communication. Because we know if you go to a meeting and somebody greets you at the door and they say, oh, your meeting's down here, we'll just bring you down. Straight away they say, do you want a tea or coffee? I'll take your coat. And that communication is broken between people. So we want to enrich that and we want to have it, I guess, as fluid as possible. So Simpatico is all about accessorizing the work areas that we normally would be throwing plugs into. We don't want to put plugs into float. We want it to be free, easy to move around. But we want you to be able to charge your mobile or your laptop at the item. So watch this space, I guess. So hopefully in the next 6 to 9 months, that will be hitting the markets as well. So thank you very much.